We begin the Gemara today on Chavav Amud Beis, about 15 lines into the Yamud. The first word on the line is law. We're holding where it says V'teipik li. This goes back to what it said in the Mishnah, that they taught the Kohanim that were Amaratzim when they came into the Beis HaMikdash on Yontif not to touch the Shulchan. They don't want to be Metame the Shulchan because they can't table it, they don't want to take it out of its position, it has to be there constantly. So the Gemara will go through a discussion here regarding the Shulchan, that seemingly this Shulchan is a piece of furniture that's in the Beis HaMikdash that can never become Tameh. Why don't we learn out for this? The Kli'eit Sa'asi L'nochasu, that the Shulchan is a wooden keli which is made to be rested in its position in the ground, and therefore it's not susceptible to Tumah, because here's the rule: V'chol Kli'eit Sa'asi L'nachas Lo Metameh. Any wooden keli that's made to rest in one place does not become tummy. What's this rule based on? My time. What's the source for this? Dumye the sak ba'inon. Because in order for a kli eitz to be susceptible to tumah, it has to be similar to a sack cloth, which Rashi says, if you look in the pasuk where it talks about materials becoming tummy, so the pasuk there says mikol kli eitz oy beged oy oy sak. So there, since in the pasuk it says kli eitz together with a sack in the same pasuk, so we learn out as follows: Masak, just like a sack cloth. Metaltel, male, verekam, it's something that's movable, and you move it around whether it's full, whether it's empty. Afkol, metaltel, male, verekam. So too, a wooden keli is only going to be susceptible to tumah if it's movable, full or empty. But the shulchan is seemingly something that was placed inside the Beis HaMikdash, and it remained there in its place, and you never moved it around. If so, it's a stable piece of furniture that rests in one place. It's not susceptible to Tumah. Answers the Gemara, no, that's not the case. Hai nami metaltel moliverekamu. The Shulchan is also a keli that's moved around, full or empty. Where do we see that the Shulchan that is was moved from its place? Kedei Lakish. Rish Lakish said, "Mai dichsiv ala Shulchan hatoy." The lashon of the pasuk that it says is that you put the bread on the Shulchan hatoy, on the pure Shulchan. Miklal shu tameh. So this lashon of the pasuk itself that it's saying that you should be sure that it's toy indicates that it could become tameh. V'amai, and Rish Lakish asked the question, how could it become tameh? Like we just asked, Kliya eitz asil lenachasu. It's a keli, it's a wooden keli that's made to rest in one place. Vein mekabel tameh. It should not be susceptible to tameh. So Ella, what he answered is, Melamed, this teaches us, Shemagbiyan Aisai, they would lift up the Shulchan, Umarim Bay La'ayri Legalim. They would show it to the people that came to be Eile Regal to see what the Shulchan has in it. And they would show them the Lechem Aponim, the bread that was inside there. And Va'imrim Lem, and they would say to the Yidim, Ru'u Chibaschem Lefnei HaMokim. See the love that you have in front of the Eibishter. That's Silukai Kisidurai. The end of the week, on Shabbos, when you remove the bread that was placed there a week earlier, the bread is fresh and hot, just like the very beginning. Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, Nez Gadol Nasa Belechem Aponim. There was a great miracle regarding this bread, that Kisidure Kach Silukai. Just like when they organized it and placed it on the Shulchan, it was the same freshness when they took it off the table. Shenema, there's a pasuk that describes this and says, Losum Lechem Choim B'yoim Hilakchai, that they placed hot bread on the day that it's taken off. So it starts off saying that they placed the bread, and it says then b'yomi lakchai. So what do we understand from this? That the bread was fresh and hot on the day that they took it off, exactly like the day that they put it onto the shulchan. So therefore, the shulchan is a movable item, and it's susceptible to tumah. So that's why they had to warn the kohanim not to touch the table, not to touch the shulchan of the Beis HaMikdash. Frag the Gemara, the so the Gemara now says, wait a minute, this whole discussion we're saying regarding the shulchan, whether it's a movable item, whether it's rests in one place, this is all if the table was just a wooden piece of furniture, if it's made of wood. But what's the story with the shulchan? Frag the Gemara, mishum tzipoy. I had a golden plate on it, and because of the golden plate, it should be tameh, it should be susceptible to tumah either way. This whole limitation that we just said here, that something which is made to stay in one place does not become tameh, that's only a limitation regarding wood. Where in the pasuk it's compared to sackcloth. But regarding metals, metals are susceptible to tumah, whether it's a keli that's movable, whether it's a keli that's positioned in one place and is not moved, it's always susceptible to tumah. So if so, this shulchan, which has the metal plate of gold on it, should always be susceptible to tumah. Now, how do we know? The question is, maybe you don't go after the plate. Maybe the table itself, the shulchan, is made of wood. The metal, the gold, is only a plate. So how do we know that the plate of it is significant to make it tummy? So the Gemara brings a source from this from a Mishnah. That's nan.
He said before that's tummy.
And a chanami. But the Gemara is asking that the whole discussion doesn't matter. You don't have to give me this answer that it's movable, because even if it was not movable, it should have anyways been tamei, because the fact that it has a golden plate on it. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. There is another pshat. When I finish the chelik here, I'll tell you another pshat. But this is Rashi's pshat. So we learned in the Mishnah as follows: Hashulchan va'adulfaki, a table or a dulfaki, which I believe is like a folding chair. That's what Rashi says here. Kisiyam eskapla, a folding chair. Shenifchasu, which part of it broke off. Oishechipon b'shayish, and this is what's relevant for us here. It was covered with marble. V'shir behem makim anachas kaisis. So even though it was covered with marble or it got broken, but there is still space to put down cups onto this table or onto this folding chair. Tamei, it'll be tamei. So here's the point. In this Mishnah, it's talking about covering it with marble. Marble is a stone that's not susceptible to tumah. So when you cover something with a material that's not susceptible to tumah, it won't be makabel tumah. But if you left over enough of a spot where you can still put down a kais on it, so then the original material is still exposed, it'll be makabel tumah. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to have more that's exposed from this table in order that it should still be makabel tumah, which is makem hanochas achatichais. And you have to have enough space on this table that you could put down not just a cup or a few cups, but you have to have also space to put down bread or meat and more things onto the table. But what's the point over here? Rashi's pshat in the Gemara is, what you see from this Mishnah is that when you have a table, for example, that's made from wood or that's made from a material that is susceptible to tumah, and now you cover it with marble that's not susceptible to tumah, the cover is significant enough that if it's fully covered, it won't be susceptible to tumah anymore. Why? Because we follow what the cover is, even though the table itself was a material that is susceptible to tumah. So therefore, says Rashi, our Gemara's question is that the same thing should be in the reverse as well. When you have a table that's not susceptible to tumah, why? Because it's a kli eitz that is stationary in one place, but you put on it a golden plate, which is metal, that is susceptible to tumah, so you follow the status of the plate, and it should become susceptible to tumah. And it doesn't make a difference if it's moved or it's not moved, the golden plate itself is susceptible to tumah. Okay, so this is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. The Rambam, just tell you bekitzer, the Rambam has an exact opposite pshat in this Gemara. The Rambam holds that the klal is, anytime there's any keli that has a plate on it, it's not makabel tumah. There's a Titus Kainim that the Rambam learns this out from, where it says that any keli that's plated, it doesn't matter what material it is, a plated keli is not makabel tumah. It's exeris hakasiv. It's exeris hakasiv that the moment it's plated, so the keli itself, which is beneath the plate, you're not even touching it b'chlal, that's not makabel tumah. And the plate itself is also insignificant. It's not the real keli itself. It's also not makabel tumah. So according to the Rambam, when the Gemara here asked the question, v'tepik le mishum tzipui, the Gemara's question is the opposite of Rashi. The Gemara is asking, since the shulchan is covered with a plate of gold, it should not be makabel tumah, because any time something is plated, that's a reason that it should not be makabel tumah. And it brings here this Mishnah, and that Mishnah is telling you that once it's plated, it's not makabel tumah. And even though that Mishnah only spoke about marble, but according to the Rambam, marble is just one example. Even if you would cover it with gold or with any metal, which is usually susceptible to tumah, any time something is plated, it's not makabel tumah. That's the Rambam's shot in this Gemara. Okay, let's continue. So the Gemara.
Even if there's room for the cups or anything.
No, if it's not fully plated, so then it is right. But here we're talking about the shulchan, which was fully plated, right?
Rambam still holds that zahav is tameh.
Correct, but not when it's a plate. Not it's a plate, exactly. Fragt the Gemara, now what are you going to answer me? Shani atzishitim. Maybe not always when a wood is going to be plated by a metal, is it going to change the status of this wood? It depends what kind of wood it is. Maybe atzi shittim, this wood that was used for the shulchan, what's atzi shittim? It's whatever material of wood it is, huh? Okay, the chashivi. It's a very expensive wood, and v'loy beteli. So therefore, even after it's plated by gold, the gold will not be mevatel the status of this wood. It's still going to be considered a wooden keli. Maybe it's different. So it depends what kind of a wood it is. So the Gemara says no. What you're suggesting to answer would be true according to Rish Lakish. The Omar, because Rish Lakish said, Leishanu ela bekli akaslagim, that only a keli that's made out of this wood that came from this place, that habam in Medina Sayam, it came from overseas, but it was actually a very cheap wood. So if you have this cheap wood and you plate it, so then the plate covers this cheap material, so the plate is the ikir, and now it's going to be Makabel Tumah because of the plate, according to Rashi, or according to the Rambam, it won't be Makabel Tumah. So this whole concept that the plate matters is only if it's a cheap wood. Ava b'kli misamim, but if it's a kli that's made out of this wood that's called misamim wood, whatever kind of wood it is, but the point is that it's a more expensive wood, so then loy beteli. So then even if you plate it, the plate is not, the wood that's beneath it will not become bottle. So then shapir. So then we can understand regarding the shulchan that the question that we're asking is not a question that because it's plated, then according to Rashi it should be makabel tumah, because no, this is a chosh of a wood, it doesn't become bottle. But according to Rabbi Yechanan's opinion, the Amar afilu b'kli misamim nami b'teli. Rabbi Yechanan says it doesn't matter what kind of wood it is. If it's expensive wood, a cheap wood, it always becomes bottle because it's plated. Ma'ikle meimar. What are we going to say regarding the shulchan here? If you will try to suggest another answer, that it's a difference when you plate something, there's different ways how you could plate it. Kan b'tzipui oimid. You have a plate that it's plated, that it's firmly plated and it does not move from its position. It's very firmly plated. Then I say that it's fully covered and plated firmly, and the material underneath, it's in according to Rashi, it's going to be makabel tumah because of the plate. And kan b'tzipui she'ein oimid. And then maybe we'll say regarding the shulchan, the cover, the plate that was put of the gold on the shulchan was not so firm. It wasn't mamish in one position. It wasn't nailed in properly, fully oimid. And therefore the shulchan is still considered to be a wooden shulchan. The plate is not firm. So the Gemara says, no, but this is not true, because Rish Lakish asked this very question from Rabbi Yechanan. This whole halacha that we're saying, when something is plated, it will become tameh, according to Rashi, or it will not become tameh, according to the Rambam, is this only by a tzipui that's fully firm, or even if it's not firm? Another question he asked him, B'chayfe es levizvizav, or b'she'ena chayfe es levizvizav? What does this mean? Levizvizav is the rim of the table. Meaning, when you have a plate, does it have to be fully covered? Even the rim, the side, the frame of the table on the side should also be covered, or even if it's not fully covered. V'amalei, and Rabbi Yechanan answered, Loishna b'tzipi yoimid, v'loishna b'tzipi she'ena yoimid. This halacha regarding the plate, it doesn't matter if the plate is firm or it's not firm, and if loishna b'chayfez levizvizav, v'loishna she'ena chayfez levizvizav. It doesn't make a difference if it covers the rim of the table or not. The halacha that when it's plated, according to Rashi, it's going to become tameh, will apply as well. So therefore our question still remains, regarding the shulchan, if it's plated by gold, according to Rashi, it should be tameh. So the Gemara answers, Ela shani shulchan. The answer is, the shulchan in the Beis HaMikdash is different than a regular piece of furniture that you cover with a plate, with a metal plate on it. Why? The Rachmane karya eitz, because there's a pasuk that refers to the shulchan as a wooden shulchan even after it's plated. Chsiv, the pasuk says, Hamizbeach eitz. This is in the pasuk in Yecheskel. That's actually referring to the Beis HaMikdash, the third Beis HaMikdash. So there it says, Hamizbeach eitz, shalosh ames gavoya, v'arkei shtayim ames, u'miktzaisav loy, v'archei v'chiraisav eitz. This is the shulchan that's placed in the Beis HaMikdash. So it's speaking about the shulchan, and it says eitz. It's referring to it as a wooden shulchan, even though the shulchan was plated by gold. So you see that the plate of the gold regarding the shulchan does not change its status of being on eitz, and therefore it would not be makabel tumah if it's resting in one place. And the only reason why the shulchan is makabel tumah is because the shulchan was moved around, as we brought before, that they've moved it to show the Yidden the nest that happened on the shulchan. Okay, now the Gemara that quoted this pasuk here, so the Gemara answers a question, an obvious question that there is in this pasuk. Pasach b'mizbeach, the pasuk begins talking about mizbeach. It says ha-mizbeach eitz, and it says all the details about the Mizbeach, about the dimensions of the Mizbeach, and the Siyum b'Shulchan. Then it concludes, Zeh Shulchan, this is the Shulchan. Why does it conclude with the Shulchan if it's not speaking about the Shulchan? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yechon and Rish Lakish Damri Tarvaya. Rabbi Yechon and Rish Lakish both answered, Bizman shebeis hamikdash kayam, when the beis hamikdash is standing, Mizbeach mechaper al adam. The Mizbeach, where you bring the karbanis, that's the source of the kapara for a person. Achshav shulchan shel adam mechaper alav. Today, when we don't have a Mizbeach, it's the table of a person that's the source of the kapara for him. So Rashi here says, what's the kapara of a table? Achnasa sarchim. When a person invites guests on the table, that's the kapara for a person like the Mizbeach. Okay, so this is the conclusion of the subject regarding the table, the shulchan, and the Beis Hamikdash, that it's susceptible to Tumah.
There's no right in according to this, there's no right that the shulchan that is talking about Beis Hamikdash is the same thing as the Mizbeach.
No, there's the pashut pshat of the pasuk. This is a drasha. The pashut pshat of the pasuk is you see that it's saying that the shulchan is eitz. That's the pashut pshat of the pasuk. And that's the Gemara's raya. It says eitz, and then it says vayidaber elai zeh. No. But afterwards it says vayidaber elai zeh shulchan, and the zeh shulchan also goes on what it says before that it's eitz. Going to the next thing, it said in the Mishnah. The what? Yeah, it says gedayla legima, but Yeah, but that Gemara over there, the gedayla legima, is also talking about achnasa sarchem. Rashi over there says the gedayla legima is achnasa sarchem. Yeah. It's interesting because in other places it says when you get to the shulchan of a person that a shulchan is daimel mizbeach if you say a dvar Torah when you eat and you don't even without achnasa sarchem. But for some reason here Rashi and Tosfos are both saying that the shulchan is daimel mizbeach only with achnasa sarchem. No. Okay, it said in the Mishnah, and then the Mishnah went on to say that both the Mizbeach HaNechoshes and the Mizbeach HaZav are compared to Karka. They're like a piece from the ground itself, and therefore it's not susceptible to Tumah. Now, Mizbeach HaNechoshes, how do I know the Mizbeach HaNechoshes is like part of the Adama, part of the ground itself, the Chsiv, Mizbeach, Adama, Tasali. That's the Mizbeach, it's a Mizbeach of earth. Mizbeach Hazav, the Chsiv, so regarding the Mizbeach, it says a pasuk HaMenoira veHaMizbechais. It uses the plural term, including both the Mizbeach HaNechoshes and the Mizbeach Hazav together. So therefore, Iskish, Mizbechais, Zelazeh. I compare the two Mizbechais one to another, that the Mizbeach Hazav, although it wasn't a Mizbeach Adama at all, but nevertheless it's compared to the Mizbeach Adama, it has the same status, that it's like Adama, and therefore both Mizbechais was not susceptible to tumah. They were not care. Anyone could come and touch it. It never needed any tefillah. Okay, then what did it say in the Mishnah? This was all Rabbi Eliezer, Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer explained it's not susceptible to tumah because it's compared to Adama. Then the Mishnah concluded, the Chachamim Oimrim mipnei shehei mitzupim. The Chachamim say that the Mizbechais are covered. They're plated with either gold or copper. So the question is, what are Chachamim trying to say when they say mipnei shehei mitzupim? Are they trying to say that it is becoming tamei because it's mitzupim? Are they trying to say that it's not? It seems like Chacham are coming to argue. Chacham are coming to say that the Mizbechais are going to be toy because they're plated. But if that's what they're trying to say, Adarabah. On the contrary, Kivin the mitzupin, based on what we learned before, if it's plated, mitamu, that should be a reason why it should become tamei. Right? What did we learn before? The Mizbechais themselves were made up of wood. And there were wooden mizbechais that are positioned in one place. They're not moved. If so, it should not be susceptible to tumah. But if it has a golden or copper plate, which is metal, even if it's stationary in one place, mitzad that metal, it should be susceptible to tumah. So if Chacham are trying to say that because it's covered, it's not mekabel tumah, but the opposite is true. If because it's plated with this metal, it should be susceptible to tumah. So the Gemara gives two answers. One answer, the Gemara says, you're right. Amen. Chacham are not coming to argue on the halach of Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim mitamim, the Chachamim also are coming to say, the Chachamim are coming to explain, okay, I made a mistake in one detail that I said before. Rabbi Eliezer said that it's tahir, right? That the Mizbeach is tahir because it's compared to Adama. Right, so if the Chachamim are coming to agree to Rabbi Eliezer, that is, and they're coming to give a different reason why it would be tired. Mipnei shehem mitzupin. So the Gemara's question is, how could mitzupin be another reason to say that it's tahir, like Rabbi Eliezer? Mitzupin is a reason that it should be tamei. So on that the Gemara answers, So one answer, the first answer, Eime, the Chachamim mitamen mipnei shem mitzupen. The Chachamim are arguing with Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim are saying that the Mizbeach Hazav, and the Mizbeach Hanachoshes will become Tamei. Why? Because it's plated with gold or copper. Even though the Mizbeach itself is wood and it would not become Tamei. Or, according to Rabbi Eliezer says that it's compared to Adama. And because it's like part of the ground, it doesn't become Tamei. But mipnei shem mitzupen, it will become Tamei.
So before
that what?
You want to say the shulchan is not movable.
Correct.
But then you say we show the people when they come. But in Bechadam we don't
correct.
Move it around.
We don't move it around. So therefore it should not become tummy. Correct. But according to the Chachamim, mipnei shem mitzupin, the plate is what makes it tummy. Because when it comes to metal, it doesn't make a difference if it's moved around or not. The metal becomes tummy. It's interesting. This would mean that they would have to toivel the Mizbeach Hazav or the Mizbeach Hanachoshes. I don't know how that's physically possible. The Mizbeach Hanachoshes is a massive, massive structure. It's like trying to toivel a building. Huh? Okay? Whatever the case is. Huh? Okay? So then the Gemara says another pshat. Or the pshat and what the Chachamim are saying is as follows. Rabbanan le Rabbi Eliezer kamri. The Rabbanan are asking a question on Rabbi Eliezer. My daitech, they're telling Rabbi Eliezer, what is your opinion? Mishum de mitzupin. So Rashi explains the pshat, what the Gemara is saying here. What did Rabbi Eliezer say? Why is a Mizbeach not Mekabel Tumah? Because it's compared to Adama. But the question over here is, why did Rabbi Eliezer have to say that it's not Mekabel Tumah because it's compared to Adama? Why didn't Rabbi Eliezer simply say that it's not Mekabel Tumah because the Mizbeach Hazav and the Mizbeach Hanachoshes are stationary in one place? Why did he have to bring me this other reason because it's Adama? So the reason, he says, your reason is Mishum de Mitzupin, because it's plated with gold or with copper, and therefore the fact that it's stationary in one place is not a good enough of a reason that it shouldn't be Makabel Tumah, because when it comes to metal, even if it's stationary in one place, it should still be Makabel Tumah, and that's why you had to give a special reason to say that it's compared to Adama. So now that the Mizbeach is Adama, doesn't matter that it's plated. Even together with the plate, it has a status of Adama, and it's not Makabel Tumah. Is that the pshat in what you're saying? So on this, Rabbanan are saying to Rabbi Eliezer, Miftul bottle tzipuyin gabayu. The plate that there is on the Mizbeach is totally bottled. It's insignificant. It's not the main thing on the Mizbeach. Okay, so in other words, the way to read the Mishnah according to the second answer of the Gemara here is V'chachamim maimrim mipnei shehein mitzupin. It's not read as a statement. It's sort of read as a question. Chachamim asking Rabbi Eliezer, you have to come up with a special reason why the Mizbeach is not Mekabel Tumah, because it's not wood, but it's metal, and metal, even if it's stationary in one place, it would be Mekabel Tumah. And that's why you have to be Mechadish that this is compared to Adama. You don't need that reason. The tzipui, the cover, the plate, and the Mizbeach is bottle. It's insignificant. And therefore it's considered to be a wooden keli. And a wooden keli that's stationary in one place is not Mekabel Tumah. That's what the Rabbanan are saying. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. But according to the Rambam, that's not the pshat in this Gemara. Just the kitzur, the point that the Rambam says is, going back to what I said before, the Rambam's opinion is that anytime you have a plate, adarabba, the plate is a reason why it should not be Mekabel Tumah. So what the Gemara here is saying is, my daiteich mishum de mitzupin. Your opinion is that because it's plated, therefore it should be Mekabel Tumah, but it's not. Miftul bottle tzipuyin gabayu. Whenever you have a plate on a keli, it's bottled to the keli, and this lashon of miftul bottle tzipuyin gabayu means that therefore it's not Mekabel Tumah. That's the way that the Rambam learns. That's what the Gemara is trying to say here. Something that's plated is not Mekabel Tumah. Okay, let's conclude the Masechta. Amar Abavo, Amar Abelazar. Abavo said in the name of Rabbi Elazar as follows: Talmidei Chachamim, ein oir shel Gehenim sheletes behen. The fire of Gehenim does not have any effect on them. Kavachayme misalamandra. There's a kavachayme from a salamandra. What's the salamandra? Rashi says a salamandra is a chaya, kind of a creature that's created from fire. When you have a fire that's burning in a place after many years, after 7 years, without any interruption, the salamandra comes out of it. Some say that this is created through kishif, but it's a creature that comes out of fire. Shekol gufanesh, their entire existence comes from fire. Did I skip something over here? Yes, let me go back up a line. Uma salamandra. Okay, so now what the Kalvachaim is as follows. Uma salamandra shatel deseishi. So this salamandra is created from fire. What happens with this salamandra? Hasach midama. If you take the blood from this salamandra and you apply it to yourself, then the fire will not affect you. That's the nature of the blood of this salamander. Talmidei Chachamim shekol gufan eish, a Talmid Chacham that learns Torah, and the Torah penetrates his whole being. His entire being is fire. That the words of Torah is fire, and that becomes the whole being of the Talmid Chacham. Alachas kama v'kama. Most definitely, the fire of Gehenna will not affect him. Reish Lakish said, "Ein or shel Gehenim sheletas b'peishi Yisrael." The fire of Gehenna does not affect peishi Yisrael, sinners amongst Yidden. Kal v'chayme mimizbeach hazah. The kal v'chayme from the mizbeach, and this is the simple pshat of our Gemara. This is the connection to what we spoke about before. The mizbeach hazah had a plate of gold on it, but there was a fire burning there all the time. So now, ma mizbeach hazav shein olav ela ka'ovi din hazav. This mizbeach has a plate that covers the wood. And how thick is this plate? It's not even so thick. It's as thick as this thin coin. Kama shanim, many years. Ein arishalet this by the fire that's there does not affect it, not melt this metal. Paishi Yisrael shemalei mitzvahs kerimain. So the Paishi Yisrael, although they're considered Paishi Yisrael, but nevertheless they're also full of mitzvahs like kerimain. The pasuk says kepelach Harimoi rakosech. Al tikri rakosech. Don't read it as rakosech elerekonen shabach. It means that even the ones that seem to be empty amongst you, they're the Paishi Yisrael, but nevertheless they're full of mitzvahs like the seeds in a pomegranate. Alachas kama v'kama, most definitely that the mitzvahs that they have will protect them from the fire of Gehenna. Mesechta Chagigah. Okay. So just a word from the Rebbe on the conclusion of the Gemara here. I made the Gemara. The Rebbe, just 2 points. The Rebbe says, we're saying it that both Talmidei Chachamim and Paishi Yisrael that do mitzvahs are protected from Gehenna. So there's 2 questions here. The first question is, why are we dividing this into 2 different statements and we're learning it out from 2 different places? Why can't we say Talmidei Chachamim and people that do mitzvahs learn it out from the Mizbeach Hazah, from the same place, that whether the Torah or the mitzvahs protect you? Why is it dividing it in 2 things? And another thing that Rebbe points out is a very interesting thing. Talmidei Chachamim have Torah in them. Paishi Yisrael have mitzvahs in them. But for some reason, Talmidei Chachamim are not called Paishi Yisrael, although they also have Avedas. Otherwise, what are they doing in Gehenna? We're referring to them as Talmidei Chachamim. The Paishi Yisrael that have mitzvahs in them, we're not referring to them as people that do mitzvahs. We refer to them as Paishi Yisrael. Why does he get the label of being a Paishi Yisrael and he gets a label of Talmid Chacham? So the Rebbe answers that Talmidei Chachamim and people that do mitzvahs, the way a mitzvah affects a person and the way learning Torah affects a person is not the same. That's where the Gemara divides it. A mitzvah creates a very strong connection to the Eibishter. There's a very strong bittul and a Kabbalah soul when you do a mitzvah. But it does not become penetrated in your being to become one with who you are. It doesn't go into your seichel. It's not digested in your being. Right? So the yichud, the achtas to the Eibishter is not there. It's just a bittul, Kabbalah soul that I follow and I do. When it comes to learning is something that goes into your whole mitzias. It changes your whole being of who you are. And therefore there's a chiddush in each one that the fire of Gehenna does not affect you. If it would only say Torah, so I would say the diuk of here in the Gemara is kol gufan eish. When a person learns Torah, it becomes one with you. I would say maybe only Torah, which penetrates the person, the fire of Gehenna doesn't affect him. But by mitzvahs, where the mitzvahs you do is just an action, it doesn't affect the person the same way. So maybe there's no protection. Then on the other hand, I would say maybe only people that do mitzvahs, where there's a bigger bittul and a Kabbalah soil. Even if I don't understand, I do the mitzvah. Maybe that has a koyach to protect me from Gehenna. But maybe Torah doesn't. Torah is something that I understand. So therefore the Gemara has to bring both, and it's 2 separate statements. And the Rebbe says, Talmidei Chachamim, since when a Talmid Chacham learns Torah, it defines who he is. It becomes part of him. So therefore, even though he has Avedas in him, the Avedas is not who he is. It's the Torah that's in his seichel. That's really who he is. That's what we refer to him as a Talmid Chacham. Person that does mitzvahs though, and he also does Avedas, it could be that the Avedas defines who he is. And the mitzvahs that he does in his life is chitzonius, and therefore we're referring to him as a Paishi Yisrael. But nevertheless, the Gemara concludes that even such an individual, the fire of Gehenna does not affect him, because that's the emes and mitzias of a yid. Sof, aliba the emes. What's the true mitzias of a yid? The mitzvahs that he does, and all the averis that he does are all only chitzonius.